Hello my loves, welcome or welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. So today I'm just on here to chat about the books that I read in September. So with further ado, let's get straight into the video and see what I have read. So you're probably aware from my video that I did do, I said that I was sort of taking a break but gonna be here and there when I feel like it, but just not putting pressure on myself. But I did say that I did want to do monthly wrap-ups per se, because I am still reading. It might not be as much as I usually do, but I wanted to still come on and chat about the books I did read. And I have done some reading, and funny enough, they might not have been that many books, but every single book I've read has been 5 stars. So in regards to the enjoyment of my reads, I had a blast. So I managed to read 5 books, and 3 of those books are a series. So basically I decided about probably in August, I'd say, I sort of decided that I wanted to try and concentrate on reading all or as many as I can of the Shadowhunter books that I have, because I had only started reading some of the Mortal Instruments ones, and I wanted to do it in not the sort of series order that you can do. I wanted to do it sort of the other order that Cassandra Clare does suggest doing. And so I had started doing that. I read about 4 books in this year, and basically when I'm not feeling well, I tend to go back to my comfort TV programs or films or whatever, and I went to the Shadowhunters TV series because it's my favourite. I think I've watched it, I would say I've gone past 10 times now. I have watched it a lot. I near enough know it off by heart. And I was watching that. I haven't been feeling the best mentally and physically. My asthma's been bad as well, so I've just been pretty lazy and stayed in bed and just watched back to back Shadowhunters. Like, I'm on season 3, or I might be on season 4 now. I'm either at the end of season 3 or I'm just at the start of season 4, I can't remember, but like, I've watched this so many times. But I was watching it, and every time I watch it, it always makes me want to pick up these Shadowhunter books. And so I was just like, do you know what, let's just keep at it on reading the books. And so I picked up the next sort of books that I needed to read. So I read the books that I needed to. I read the first 3 books of the Mortal Instruments, and then it basically was saying that you had to read the this like trilogy, which is the Infernal Devices. So I read book 1, which was Clockwork Angel, which is obviously by Cassandra Clare. Now this is more of a historical fantasy, and that can be a yay and a nay for me. It all depends on the book and how it's written. This for me was a yay, because it very much, yes, it was historical, yes, we were in like a different time, and like it had sort of the different atmosphere to what it is to present day, but it wasn't boring because we obviously had the demons and we had the clockwork monsters and all of that malarkey. So in book 1 we follow Tessa Gray, who arrives in England during the reign of Queen Victoria, and basically she learns that she is a warlock, a shape-shifting warlock, and she's been captured and all of that, and she's been put into an arranged marriage, and that she doesn't even know the person and blah blah blah, and she basically gets thrown into this fight between Shadowhunters and the Downworlders, and that's when she meets Will and Jem at the London Institute, and she's basically learning about who she is. It's very clear that she isn't fully a warlock because she doesn't bear a warlock mark, but she's some supernatural being. And yeah, so basically she's in this institute, she's sort of learning about herself. She's also drawn to both Will and Jem as characters, and yeah, I don't want to go too into it because I'm sure everyone knows what the series is about, but I thoroughly enjoyed this. It took me a while to get into it, just because of the Mortal Instruments, the 3 books that I've read, is very much present day, very much boom, 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 and I was just getting used to the sort of olden time London. But as once I got like, you know, a good few chapters in, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now these are actually very, very long chapters. Like there isn't actually that many chapters per se. Let me tell you how many once you can find it. So there were 20 chapters plus an epilogue, but they're really long chapters. Like, you know, I was like about 3 chapters in, and like I was already like nearly 100 pages in, kind of thing. But I thoroughly enjoyed this. I liked, there were just some little like breadcrumbs into you understanding certain people that you do know in the Mortal Instruments, and obviously watching the TV series I knew a bit about them. And for example, we had Camille, who obviously is a vampire, and in the Shadowhunters TV series we sort of know a bit about her, but in here we actually meet her when she's dating Magnus, and I just like that background bit because I was like, I know that from the TV series, but in regards to the books I've not actually got that bit yet. So I really like the little mentions that I know of characters from both the TV series and the Mortal Instrument books, and it was just quite nice to sort of understand them a bit more. And obviously I do know quite a bit about the Shadowhunters. I am a big fan, so I do look at the fandom stuff, so I do know quite a bit specifically in this series. So I do sort of know like Tessa's sort of like descendant to different like Shadowhunters in the book. It's one of those ones where I can see why Cassandra Clare sort of says to read the way she. There's 2 different suggestions. This suggestion I quite liked because she said it does give you breadcrumbs, it does intermingle certain different people, and you understand it a bit more. And I kind of like that because I'm like, ooh, and it sort of does sort of, it opens up and makes you understand the series a bit more. I absolutely loved this. It was 5 stars. I really liked that it was, this book actually, like the whole series, wasn't actually fully in the whole supernatural in the sense that they were fighting demons and all this. Instead it was actually clockwork monsters. So they are automobile sort of devices that someone ends up putting a demon inside. Like, so it's it basically, shadow hunters can't kill it because the whole clockwork and the metalwork and all that, it actually doesn't work on Shadowhunter's blades and stuff like that. So it's a different kind of monsters that they were fighting and all that. And I absolutely love all of the book references. Like this whole series, this trilogy is full of book references, and I love it. I love that how much Tessa and Will love their books, and that was really nice. And I love Tessa. I loved her growth in this book and throughout the series. And I can't, and I still can't now, I cannot actually decide which bloke out of Will and Jem that I like. I like both of them equally, but in different ways. And yeah, I really love this. And then I went straight into book 2, which is Clockwork Prince. This, I would say, primarily sort of focuses a bit more on Will, I would say. We sort of learn more about Tessa, we learn more about the Magistra, who's the one behind everything, and sort of Will pushes Tessa away, but we find out why, and she sort of then grows closer to Jem. She finds out what's the secret with Jem is, and all of that. And in this book, she's sort of seeing Jem, and yeah, and she sort of starts finding a bit more about herself. And again, it's the whole, like they're sort of still fighting supernatural beings, but it's still focusing on the infernal devices, the clockwork monsters and stuff like that. But we do get a bit more insight thing. We have a lot of betrayal in here as well. We have a lot of like romance here and there. And I just, I really hated the Enclave in this series until right at the end. I was like, this book is one of those, this like whole series is one of those books where it makes you feel every emotion. I'm not gonna lie, I have cried my heart out at this series, because as much as I know what's gonna happen, because I've read, like, you know, like I said, I'm a big fan, so I look at the fandom, I look at the character art and stuff like that, the same as what I do with Sarah J Maas books. But I didn't expect it to hurt so much. But again, absolutely loved this book. I loved getting a more insight in Will and Jem, and not just Tessa, and the other members in the London Institute as well, and Charlotte. Oh, Charlotte, I love her. She's just, yeah, you can see why she's a Fairchild. Like, you can just see why. So again, 5 stars for that one. And then I also read Clockwork Princess, which is the last book. This epilogue, my word, I was in a state. I was an absolute state. I don't want to go into too much. I don't want to spoil it just in case you've not read the series, but everything comes to light, you know. More betrayal happens, but more answers happen, and Tessa finally finds out who she is, and like she gets a happily ever after. Like, she's very lucky that she actually gets 2 lots of loves. But I just wasn't expecting any of it to hurt as much as it did. Like, honestly, this book, I think I cried start to finish. I think there were a few moments where I stopped crying, but I was pretty much in tears throughout this book. And again, like I said, the Enclave, I hate them. And it's funny because it makes sense and why I don't like them in Immortal Instruments, because yeah, if I can't decide which series I love at the moment. I've only read the first 3 books in the Mortal Instruments. I haven't read the other 3 books, and I just started reading the 4th book in the 6th book Shadow Mortal Instruments series, because that's what I have to do next. And I started reading it, and I actually went to the back only because I wasn't sure whether I had already read it, because I had started reading the Shadowhunter series a while back from the library. And I couldn't remember where I got up to, and I read the last chapter and I was like, well, I haven't read this. But I was actually surprised at how the TV series was different to the book. So obviously the TV series is done after the book, and from what I read, I'm not going to give spoilers out, but I actually prefer the TV series twist to it than the book. And I was like, oh, I'm not sure. Basically, the 4th book, like in the TV series, we find so obviously Jace was brought back to life, and obviously he's sort of more susceptible to get demon possession, which is what happened. So that's what the book is about. But whereas things were interlinked with Clary, it's the opposite way around. It's more Jace and being interlinked with the brother. Yeah, so it's one of those ones where I'm like, well, I know what happens now. Do I want to continue reading it? Because I actually prefer the TV series. But yeah, I can't decide which series I like so far. I think at the minute, this series is my favourite so far, just because of the emotions I felt from it, and I couldn't put it down. Once I started this series, I was like, nope, I need to continue reading it. So all 3 of these books were 5-star. If you haven't read them, read them. They're fantastic. You don't even have to read the other books if you don't want to. Honestly, it could be fine just as a standalone. And then on to the next book, which is The Butcher and the Wren by Elena Yorkiepoo. I don't know how to say her surname, I apologise. This is by the co-host of the podcast Morbid, a true crime podcast, which I have just started listening to and I love. But this is her debut book, and this was for the Read Along with Tandem Collective. And oh my god, I haven't read that many thrillers this year, but I'm going to say this is my favourite thriller so far of this year. I just love this book from start to finish. I don't want to go into it too much because I don't want to spoil it, and I genuinely need to say, this is me saying you need to pick up and read it because it's amazing. But basically, we are in Louisiana, and we have a serial killer who has a liking to medical experiments. He is known as the what do they call him? Yeah, the media call him the Butcher. But basically, there is a serial killer, and he has quite a bit of a medical background. He likes his torture, and yeah, and then we follow Dr. Dr. Ren Muller, who is a forensic pathologist, and she also like works alongside the detective on the case and all that. They sort of, she doesn't just do like the pathology. I'd say she's sort of like a consultant in the police side of things as well. But basically, she's on a case and she's really, really, really trying to catch the butcher. But the butcher's always like one step ahead. Like he freezes the bodies, so it sort of changes things and everything's different. And so she's trying to outsmart him, and it's got both her point of view, and then we've also got the killer's point of view. And immediately, what I like in thrillers is I love it to be multiple POV. I absolutely love it if there's a killer's point of view on there, because I like hearing their side of things and them doing it. I absolutely love police procedural, and I really love it when we have like forensic backgrounds, whether it's a forensic scientist or like a pathologist or anything like that, or an autopsy technician, stuff like that. I just like that kind of thing. And so we had that, and then on top of that, which I love in thrillers, is the cat and mouse trope, and we had that. It was sort of a twist in like there's two parts. Like the second part was a cat and mouse bit, and what I absolutely love about this book was the complete twist that happened. And I kind of had an inkling that possibly something was going on, but I didn't expect that full on reveal. And I was just like, ugh. And the ending, it, like a lot of thrillers, they end and the bad guy's being caught and stuff like this. This left it on a major cliffhanger, and I was like, is there going to be a sequel? Is there going to be a series of this? Because they can't just leave it like that, because you're left with so many questions. You're left with your mouth open wide, like, what? And yeah, and I think from what I gathered, there is going to be a sequel. So I hope that comes out very soon, because I love this. For a debut, it was brilliant. I saw a lot of people in the chat really enjoy it, but thought the ending was rushed. A few people said that they didn't connect to the characters, but for me, it was very hard to just do the chapters for the days, and I ended up not doing it at the end. I ended up reading the whole like 2 days worth that in one day, because I was like, I need to know what happens. But it was so eerie, like the way Elena, I think, yeah, describes like Louisiana. I don't ever want to go there. It sounds creepy as hell, and it's a very big place to have a lot of murder happen. But it was just creepy, and then like the whole cat and mouse thing and the whole thing of what this butcher does, like it was very much like I was on the edge thinking, I do not know how this is gonna go. And yeah, and I just loved the forensic side of things and the police procedural, and I thought Ren as a character was brilliant. I actually, I'm not gonna lie, quite like the killer. Not in a nice way, but in a way of like, he's really twisted, but I kind of can understand why he's the way he is and why he's doing what he's doing. And it was quite, yeah, I felt like I was having like a like psychologist moment with this killer, and like thinking, right, if all of this was different in your childhood, you probably wouldn't be anything like this. But yeah, if you haven't picked this up, please do. It's really good. It's an absolute brilliant debut. I think it's the best thriller I've read so far this year, and I have been listening to the podcast, and I'm really enjoying the podcast too. So I feel like after reading this and now listening to the podcast, I'm still getting the vibe that this book gave me. So yeah, 5 stars. You need to get it, honestly. And then lastly, I am shocked about this book. I read Our Violet Ends, which is the second book in These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. I can't remember what rating I gave These Violent Delights. I can't remember whether it was a 4 or a 5 star. But I went into that book thinking I wasn't going to like it because, again, it was a historical fantasy. I wouldn't say it was very much a fantasy side of things. But I ended up loving it. I loved the sort of different take to Romeo and Juliet. Like, it was a Romeo and Juliet retelling, but it was different, but there was still aspects of the Romeo and Juliet we know in there. And I decided to pick this up. And I read this in 8 hours. I read this in 8 hours. I picked it up at 4 o'clock. 9 hours, and I finished this around midnight. And this is 5 stars. Absolutely love it. How it all ended was very good. Like, it was very good. I was just like, ooh, ooh. And it was a nod to the head on the whole Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare and all of that. Like, at the ending, it was a nod to the head to that. I just loved this, and it's quite strange. I didn't feel like there was as much action in this book as there was in the first book. But for me, it was just Juliet and Roma. It was just them, and how much I was sucked in, and how much I just wanted them to, like, have a happily ever after. And it was very political in this one, I think. But I can't explain what it is about this book that I like. I genuinely feel like I just feel so engrossed with the characters, and Romeo and Juliet's characters I just love, and I'm very much like, ooh. And then, like, when it got to the bit where everything got revealed and Juliet told Roma what went on and why she did what she did, I was just like, oh. And it ended in the sort of way of like, okay, like, you have to interpret whether that's happened or whether this has happened, and I'm going with the latter because that's what I want. But I don't know, like, in regards to, like, what went on in this book, I wouldn't say it was a 5 stars, but just for me, I just was so engrossed with the characters and just wanting them all to, like, be friends and all of that. And, like, Romeo and Juliet, they just elevated the story for me, and I felt like I was one of them. Like, when I was in Juliet's perspective, I felt like I was Juliet. When I was Roma's perspective, I felt like I was Roma. And yeah, I can't explain what about this book that made me not put it down. Like, I can't. Generally, for me, I think it was just the characters. I just loved them so much that I just needed to know what happened. And this is the first book that I have read in a few hours. Like, not even 24 hours, it was 8 hours. And I haven't done that in a whole year, I don't think. So, yay to this book for doing that for me. And so, yeah, all 5 books, 5 stars, brilliant. And, you know, I don't care that it was only 5 books compared to, like, the 20 or 30 books I can do. But for me, having 5-star reads, like really good reads that I thoroughly enjoyed, is better than having loads of books where there might not have been really good ratings. So yeah, I don't know what I'm planning to do in October. I do want to read some spooky books, some thriller books, so I'm leaning onto that. But I haven't got a TBR for it. I'm not going to do a TBR or anything. So yeah, look for, like, the end of October, beginning of November to see what I did read for October. But yeah, very happy with my reads. It was a good reading session for me, and reading a book in 8 hours, like, it happened yesterday. Just icing on a cake. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you sometime soon. Bye!